every second and fourth Thursday of the month at noon Mountain, we will be here with a new presentation. During this presentation, you may come up with questions. If you do, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to send in your questions, as all of you are muted during this presentation. Your question will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Now, I would like to introduce you to our presenter today, Jenise Borrasso. Jenise, or Jenny Penny, as she's known, was born and raised in San Francisco, California. She was excited when her father, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, introduced her to numismatics. Starting with Lincoln cents, she developed a deep passion and love for coins. A current student of the ANA's Numismatic Diploma program, she is on the path to becoming a numismatic scholar. She enjoys sharing her interest in cents with friends, family, and strangers. And today she is presenting the rescheduled The History of the Jefferson Nickel. And Jenise, I will say your enthusiasm is always intoxicating, so I'm looking forward to seeing your presentation.
Right. Hello. Hello. How are you? Hi. Okay. Yes. So, as you said, my name is Jenise. I'm from San Francisco. A relative, I would say, newcomer to numismatics. My father was, he ended up giving me a bunch of coffee cans full of Lincoln cents. Took me, my goodness, almost a year to go through them all. They were all mixed up. They had been unsearched. And so that just kind of started my journey on numismatics, coins in particular. Since then, so what I've done, and this is why this is my third NumismaTalk, and what I've done is I like to focus on the history of the coin, and I started with circulating coins. Just as somebody newer to the field, I felt like something that I could actually touch in my hands that I was using on a daily basis would be a good way to start. And then there's a lot of information out there, you know, about even just the Lincoln cent. I mean, it can, there's a lot, just like you're going to find out today, there's a lot of information about the Jefferson nickel. And if you're interested in numismatics or the worth of the coin, it might seem overwhelming to figure out what is worth what and why and all of these different aspects. So what I found for me to help myself kind of organize it in my head is to first learn about history of the coin. And so as I learned about the history of circulating coins, I felt the need to share that with people because I thought that is a good beginner step. Also, you know, in the end, maybe you've done coin collecting for 30, 40 years, 50 years, and you just never knew the history about a coin. That's my fascination with the coins as I start my collections. And so I'm really happy to be able to present the history, you know, of the Jefferson nickel with you all today. So let's get started. All right. For any coin, one must question the answers to the following questions in order to deduce as much information as possible about the coin's historical context. Now, I found this quote, it's an anonymous quote, in relation to the history of coins. So the questions that we ask when we want to learn the history of a coin is, number one, why this design? Number two, why these inscriptions? Number three, why this denomination? Number four, why this metal? Number five, why this weight? And number six, why at this time? So today we're going to answer all those questions in the quote about the Jefferson nickel. And I promise you, you'll never look at nickels in your pocket change the same way again. Happy 85th birthday, Jefferson Nickel. Now, it's 2024 because this NumismaTalk was rescheduled from 2023, but 2023 was the 85th birthday of the Jefferson nickel. It's the longest running series for a 5-cent denomination, and it features a portrait of our third president. It's had some temporary composites and changes in its metal alloy, and it's had a couple obverse and a couple reverse changes. Now, it's dubbed a sleeper in the coin world, which means that not many people talk about it or excited about this particular coin, even when the 2004 and 2005 Westward Journey reverses came out. That's just the way it is. So, which, because it's a sleeper, what it does is it makes this coin very affordable and achievable. You can find almost all dates, if not all, in circulation still, if you pay attention. Why the change? All right, well, in 1938, the U.S. Mint was finally legally allowed to issue a U.S. nickel with a design change. And this is due to the Coinage Act of September 26, 1890. And it states, and I quote, "No change in the design or die of any coin shall be made oftener than once in 25 years from and including the year of the first adoption of the design, model, die, or hub for the same coin, provided that no change be made to the diameter of any coin." So you'll notice that even though the designs and temporary metal alloy have changed, the diameter and the weight have not changed since the 1883 Liberty heads. In addition to the 25 years expiring of Buffalo nickel, there'd been a lot of wear and tear on the dies. The strike quality was never very sharp to begin with, and much less at the end of the run of the 25 years of the Buffalo nickel. So it wasn't really attracting collector attraction or attention as much as the Treasury would like. So they were more than happy to change the design when they legally were allowed to do so. Ooh, a competition. The same year, a design competition was held to replace the Buffalo nickel. Now, the Mint already had some design ideas in mind, and they were requesting submissions from people, which this is very new for them to do back then. So for the obverse, or front of the coin, they wanted a portrait of Thomas Jefferson. The idea was said to have come from then President Franklin Roosevelt, who had a deep admiration for Jefferson. For the reverse, the design they wanted of Thomas Jefferson's Virginia estate, the Monticello, meaning little mountain in Italian. Monticello was Jefferson's home from 1770 until his death in 1826. He built his home on land he inherited from his father's plantation in Virginia called Shadwell. In 1768, he cleared about 250 feet at the uppermost point of an 800-foot mountain on the plantation. He said himself that this is a place he used to frolic and play as a child. He also wanted the Monticello to be self-sufficient. So most brick at this time was being imported from England. And remember, from the English Channel to the east coast of America is over 3,000 miles. It took an average of 30 days for a cargo ship in the late 1700s. And that's assuming there's no problems, no storms, no detours, crossing the entire Atlantic. So instead, Jefferson molded and baked his own bricks, and with clay he found on his own property. Also, most of the lumber, stone, and limestone came from the property. Even the nails were manufactured on site. The vegetable and fruit garden also supplied food for the estate. The house and grounds were all designed by Jefferson and are considered today to be masterpieces of architecture, but took 40 years of changing designs to get it just right. That's why Jefferson has that quote I have on the screen here: "Architecture is my delight. Putting up and pulling down, one of my favorite amusements." So it kind of reminds me of, I'm from California, Northern California, and the Winchester Mystery House, where I don't know if anybody knows the story behind the Winchester Mystery House or the guns, but that ghost came to her and she felt so guilty for being involved in the manufacturing of Winchester guns. And the ghost kept telling her to build and build and build. And so she just kept building on pieces of her house. And it's this huge mansion that's supposed to be haunted, but she kept building. So the difference in Jefferson would be that he also pulled it down to get it right. Besides his own home and Monticello, he also designed the Virginia State Capitol, as seen in the top left corner, and the original buildings of the University of Virginia. All right. While he was Secretary of State for George Washington, Jefferson helped with the layout of the first federal buildings for the relocation of the country's capital to Washington, D.C. The national competition for new design for the 5-set nickel was overseen by the Section of Painting and Sculpture. The sum of $1,000 was to be paid to the sculptor whose design wins, which included revisions. The winning artist was Felix Schlag, a German immigrant who first came to the United States in 1929. It took him 4 weeks to design. And yes, it looks a little different. We'll talk about that. For the obverse, he used as a model a portrait of Jefferson created by artist Gilbert Stuart. although Schlag did turn the slight profile in the portrait to a full side profile. And you can see the similarities in the nose and in the chin, especially. The nose is more pointed and the chin has a little, like a more little ball at the bottom. On the reverse, he designed the Monticello with trees and a modernistic side view, as seen below in the right corner. This is the only picture I could find of a side view that would emulate what Schlag was trying to portray on the coin with the trees and everything. This was done to accentuate Jefferson's architectural and horticultural skills. Also note in the original coin, the modernistic fonts in the inscriptions with this design. So the Fine Arts Commission rejected Schlag's corner view of the Monticello and made him redesign it to a plain head on front view. In addition, they required him to change the modernistic font to use traditional Roman lettering, as you can see here. Here's a comparison of the original design submitted and the one that got the final approval. So we're going to notice the differences here. Notice the differences in the inscription on font on both the front, the obverse and the reverse, the front and the back. There are also very slight changes made to Jefferson's jaw and coat on the obverse. The jaw was originally more square, and now it's a lot more pointed. And the collar of the coat was like shorter. I'm not a little fatter, it seems, but mostly shorter. And on the revised one, the collar is a little longer. Now the reverse was changed to depict the front of the building, but notice that all the shrubbery was removed. Also notice how in the original design, Schlag did not design the legend underneath the building to say Monticello. So that's in the new design. Now, many say it's a shame he was required to change it at all. I mean, after all, he won the contest because of his creativity and artistry. And now we know that Jefferson was also known for his architectural and horticultural talents. So it seems like the original design is more fitting, but you decide. For some unknown reason, Schlag did not include his initials on the coin's design. It wasn't actually added until 1966, and I will show a picture of that later in this presentation. Also remember that no US coins to date had the letter P, indicating the Philadelphia Mint yet. So if you notice that it's missing, you are correct. This is assumed because Philadelphia was the original mint. So on the obverse, the inscriptions read Liberty in the upper right curve. The date is on the lower right curve, and In God We Trust on the left curve. The words liberty and the date are actually required to be inscribed on the obverse of all US coins according to the United States Coinage Act of 1792, which states, and I quote, "Upon one side of each of the said coins there shall be an impression emblematic of liberty with an inscription of the words liberty and the year of coinage," end quote. The words "In God We Trust" were not required until 1865. Note, in the Coinage Act, okay, the words "an impression emblematic of liberty" instead of Lady Liberty. This left interpretation open in later years to begin putting portraits of presidents or other impressions emblematic of liberty on the obverse side of the coin. So the law is still in effect today. So whenever you see the obverse of the coin, you know that somehow it has to be an impression emblematic of liberty. On the reverse, the legend Monticello appears for obvious reasons, describing the building. Now, with the fourth Coinage Passage Act of 1873, the reverse of all US coins were all required to inscribe the words United States of America and E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, symbolizing how our many states come together to form one nation. And the reverse was required to have the coin's denomination. In addition, I'd like to note that the word cents appears on the back of the coin. Now, This is due to problems with the Liberty head nickels in 1883. They didn't have the word cent inscribed. They just had a V or Roman numeral 5 on the reverse. As a result, some of these nickels were gold plated and passed off as $5 gold pieces. So that quickly ended, and they added the word cents immediately, and it's been that way ever since, and I assume will stay that way. The Coinage Act also stipulates what each denomination's coin metal alloy composition should be. So the U.S. nickel 5 cents was and still is to be made of 75% copper, 25% nickel. All nickels are to weigh 5 grams, or specifically in 1883 language, 77 and 1600th grain troy, which is approximately 5 grams. In 1939, the following year after the initial issuance of the Jefferson nickel, the mint recut the hub for the nickel. The hub is what's used to make the die, and the die is the metal piece that's used to press the designs into the coins. So the initial hub's striking had fuzzy stairs. With the new one, you can see all 6 stairs clearly, thus earning the term full steps. Nowadays, a full steps nickel is one that has at least 5 separate unbroken steps or lines to be clearly visible at the base of Monticello to be eligible for a full step grading designation. In addition, according to the PCGS guidelines, the full steps designation can only be granted if the coin's condition is a mint state 60 or higher. So just something to note on that. If you happen to have some full step coins, they have to be MS 60 or grade or higher to be graded as. So Schlag was not available to work on the project immediately. He had a previous art commitment. He was in high demand. So the Denver Mint issued 7,000,1938D Buffalo nickels. When the 1938D Buffalo nickels did finally begin to be distributed, thousands of rolls were immediately put away by speculators because by that time they knew that this was the last of its line. In October 1938, 29 million Jefferson nickels from the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were made and circulated to all the Federal Reserve banks in November. Now, 1938D Buffalo nickels in circulated condition now range in worth, depending on the condition, from 50 cents to $20, and that's circulated. In high mint grades, the 1938D can be worth up to $14,000. So you might want to keep your eyes open for some of those. Not many people realize that they made Buffalo nickels in 1938. However, the Jefferson 1938 nickel wasn't that easy to get your hands on either. As soon as they came out, people started hoarding rolls of them, so they were actually very hard to get until about 1940. Now, just for fun, I threw on a slide here of the 2nd and 3rd place winners of the Jefferson Nickel contest, just so you could see their designs. So we have Henry Kreis, I'm not sure how to say his name, for 2nd place. And you can see he has a front view of the Monticello as well, but a very different looking Jefferson portrait. And then look at Wheeler Williams. Ooh, this is interesting. And notice the location of the inscriptions, you know, how different they are. And so very interesting and different. And you just think that one of these nickels could have been our Jefferson nickel. Fun thing to throw out there. Although there were no design changes in the latter half of 1942, there was an alloy change or metal content change in the Jefferson nickel. Now, the history of the U.S. nickel or 5 cent nickel has always been a metal alloy of 75% copper, 25% nickel. However, in 1942 to 1945, a wartime version of the coin was put into circulation. So the metal content was actually changed to 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. Now, why did they change it? Well, another passage Coinage Act. So the passage of the Act of March 27th, 1942 allowed the alloy or metal contents of U.S. coins to be changed. In fact, by the end of 1942, the quantity of copper was significantly reduced. Think about the 1943 steel cent. They just took copper out completely. And nickel was actually also eliminated completely. So this was done for wartime shortages to conserve nickel, which was a necessary raw material to manufacture automobiles, aircrafts, electrical, energy, and naval equipment. Also in 1942, the use of magnetoresistance or Hall effect sensors in 5-cent vending machines were the reason. Vending companies rejected the mint's initial 50-50, which 50 silver, 50 copper alloy. So the vending machine companies at that time, you had a lot of vending machines everywhere. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Japan. I was in Japan about 10 years ago. I taught English in Japan, and I had never seen, I mean, there's just vending machines like in every corner, vending machines. And it's interesting when I don't know about now, a lot of things have caught up, but in the past, when you go overseas, you kind of see a little bit of American history that got pushed overseas. And so since I wasn't born in the era when we had a bunch of vending machines here, and so it was really interesting. So I can understand that from my traveling experience. But yeah, so the vending machine companies, they had a say in it, and they said, nope, this 50-50 isn't going to work. So that's why they introduced the manganese. It helped with the weight and the electrical components to work in the vending machines. Notice also that they moved the mint mark on the reverse from the right corner of the Monticello to above the Monticello. And for the first time in U.S. history, they added the P mint mark, which is the Philadelphia mint mark, to a circulating coin. It's the first time in history they ever added a P. Now, some say the reason that they moved the mint mark and added the P was so that it would be easier for the government to take those coins containing 35% silver out of circulation when they were done, because it was more obvious and easier to find. But that's just a theory that's out there. Came across in my research. All right, in 1946, they went back to the original alloy of 75% copper, 25% nickel, which is what it is still today. They also moved the mint marks of D and S for San Francisco back to the right lower side of the Monticello. And they re-eliminated the P mint mark. So there's no more P. So the only coin they put the P on was the Jefferson Nickel during wartime. They never put the P on any other coin. And now it's 1946, and no P is on even the Jefferson Nickel anymore. Done. So you can see that on the bottom photo there, that there's no mint mark at all, meaning that is a P. It's a Philadelphia. They didn't actually start putting the P mint mark on the nickel again until 1980. In 1966, Schlag's initials were added for the first time to his design on the coin. There, under the collar, on the right bottom of the obverse, you can see FS. Not till 1966, though. The next change occurred in 68 when Mint Director Eva Adams ordered the placement of the mint mark to be changed from the reverse to the obverse. So as you can see here in this Denver and San Francisco nickel examples. And remember, we do not have an example of a P because they did not put the P on until 1980. So after allowing the P mint mark for the first time on the war nickel, albeit temporarily, a P for Philadelphia was actually put on the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar. Now, the next year, in 1980, the mint finally allowed the P mint mark to be put on all other Philadelphia minted U.S. coins, including the Jefferson Nickel, as seen here in this photo. Right. Year 2003 marks the 200th anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase, which President Jefferson oversaw the acquisition of nearly 830,000 square miles of land west of the Mississippi River from the French Republic for $15 million in the year 1803. Now, the surveyors of this land were none other than Captain Meriwether Lewis and Second Lieutenant William Clark from 1804 through 1805 during an exploratory tour known as the Lewis and Clark Expedition. The bicentennial of this expedition, which occurred in 1804 and 1805, not the Louisiana Purchase in 2003 per se, in 1803 per se, was commemorated by the new reverse designs resembling symbolic scenes from their journey. So the 4 reverse designs were broken into 2 years, 2004 and 2005, and they include the 2004 Peace Medal, the 2004 Keelboat, the 2005 American Bison, and the 2005 Western Waters designs. The first 2004 design change depicts an adaptation of the Indian Peace Medals, which is at the bottom here. Those were made of silver, and they were struck for Jefferson. They were designed by the assistant graver for the U.S. Mint at the time, John Reich, in 1801. Clasped hands signify peace and friendship. The hand with the military uniform cuff symbolizes the American government, and the other hand with the silver band adorned with beads and a stylized American eagle represent the Native American community, with whom the United States sought good relations. The inscriptions are all the same as the previous year nickel, with the addition of Louisiana Purchase 1803 on the reverse. The obverse, which is not shown here, is the original design, so it didn't change. In fact, Lewis and Clark carried a large supply of Jefferson Indian Peace Medals on their expedition to the Pacific Ocean from 1804 to 1806. Federal officials carried these medals when going through Indian territory as well. In fact, these medals were also presented to Indian chiefs on their visits to the national capital and on other important occasions, such as signing a treaty. The sculptor and engraver, not the designer, of the 2004 nickel piece medal design is Norman Nemeth. He spent 11 years with the Franklin Mint. He also sculpted the 2007 Wyoming State Quarter reverse. Notice on the Wyoming Quarter reverse, the lower right corner above the M of the inscription on the bottom, E pluribus unum, Norman's initials, N-E-M. Also on 2004 Peace Medal directly under the right cuff, his initials, N-E-M. Unfortunately, Norman passed away in 2012. This 2004 Jefferson Nickel keelboat reverse design features an angle side view of the full sail keelboat that transported members of the Lewis and Clark expedition and their supplies through the rivers of the Louisiana Territory while they were searching for the passage to the Pacific. Built to specifications of Captain Lewis, the 55-foot keelboat could be either sailed, rowed, pulled like a raft, or towed from the riverbank. And you can see Captain Lewis and Second Lieutenant Clark in full uniform at the bow of the boat. The inscriptions are the same, except in addition of the words Lewis and Clark beneath the boat. Beside the coin, I have here a real-life image of a keelboat replicating the Lewis and Clark expedition that I actually pulled off of a Discovery Channel documentary because I thought it showed like a real cool likeness to the coin's design. The reverse keelboat nickel was designed and sculpted by Alfred Beletsky, and he was an American sculptor who had been working with the U.S. Mint since 1993. In 2001, he won Coin of the Year award for his 1999 design of the New Jersey State Quarter, which depicts General George Washington and his troops crossing the Delaware River on December 25th, 1776, Christmas Day. Now, don't let the 1787 date on the top of that coin fool you. That date represents the year New Jersey became a state, 18th. Fortunately, I couldn't find any photos online of Alfred. For the first time in 67 years, a new likeness of Jefferson was designed based on a bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon. The Liberty inscription is based upon Thomas Jefferson's own handwriting. So you can see the similarities there and from the sculpture bust, and that's cool, his own handwriting. The designer of the new obverse is Joe Fitzgerald. He's an American artist and graphic designer, and he was one of 24 artists accepted into the United States Mint Artistic Infusion Program. If you're not familiar, the Artistic Infusion Program was established in 2003, and it invites American artists to create designs for certain U.S. coins and medals. The goal was to enrich and diversify the designs. So each artist selected into the program, and there's 24, receive assignments to design coins, and they're paid a set fee for that. Now, if their design is actually chosen to mint, then they earn an additional bonus fee, and they will also have the opportunity to have their initials put on the coin as well. So if you look to the left bottom curve, on Jefferson's second ripple of his collar are the initials JF for Joe Fitzgerald. So not only did Joe Fitzgerald win the chosen obverse for the 2005 nickel, but for the second nickel, second half of the year released reverse of the 2005, he was also awarded that. So he was actually awarded 2 design commissions. Now the sculptor of the 2005 Obverse is Don Everhart, and he was also in the Artistic Infusion program. He worked for the Franklin Mint for 5 years. Then he pursued freelance. He has permanent collections of his work in the Smithsonian, British Museum, the American Numismatic Society, and the National Sculpture Society. He also designed and sculpted both the obverse and the reverse of 2014 National Baseball Hall of Fame commemoratives, which won Point of the Year in 2016. Now, I have 2 out of the 3 sets. I don't have the gold but they are my absolute favorite commemorative coins. I am an avid baseball fan. I'm so happy baseball season finally started. And this is one of the coolest coins because the coin actually has a curve on it. And the curve goes over the seams of the baseball, as you can see in the left picture, right? And then when you turn it around, it has a glove. So the same curve. So it actually looks like it's a real baseball on one side and like a real glove on the other. They're really cool. It's a really cool set. But it includes the clad metal alloy 50-cent piece, a $1 silver piece, and the $5 gold piece. Right, the reverse design. All right, the design, and this is the first design. So the reverse designer was Jamie Fracke, and the sculptor was Norman Nemeth, who we already talked about. So the reverse of the first 2005 Jefferson Nickel features an American bison, recognizing the Native Americans' wildlife. And that's what was encountered by Lewis and Clark on their expedition. They encountered bison. So the American bison is actually the largest land animal in North America, and it can reach up to speeds like 35 miles an hour. They played a real central role in America's history and culture while helping to shape the Great Plains and the lifestyle of the Native Americans. Today, bison live in all 50 states, and they serve as a symbol of unity, resilience, and healthy lifestyles and communities. The designer, Jamie Fracke, as we mentioned in the last slide, he's another artist actually from the U.S. Mint's Artistic Design Program. He also designed the 2014 World's Fair of Money medal, the reverse. So I don't know if anybody attended the 2014 World's Fair of Money in Chicago, but he designed the reverse of that. And the sculptor was Norman Nemeth, who we already talked about. He was also right. The 2005 Ocean in View reverse nickel. So the designer is Joe Fitzgerald, who we already talked about. But the sculptor is Donna Weaver, and we'll talk about her next. But this coin features a scene from the Pacific Ocean as it may have been seen, viewed, or may have been seen, may have been viewed, even though they say that they were 20 miles away. I'll give you that story in a second. So this is the scene as it may have been viewed for the first time of the Pacific Ocean and the Lewis and Clark expedition. So the inscription, though, it reflects not verbatim, but it's supposed to be an excited journal entry from Second Lieutenant Clark in 1805. And so they're paraphrasing his original journal entry, and they paraphrase it to "Ocean in view, oh, the joy." And so if you look at the original, and I didn't write it down, so nobody asked me in the Q&A what that is. I didn't write it down. The gist of it was that the excitement of getting there, because there's a lot of research online saying that they were only 20 miles away. So the inscription is the excitement of what they might see, and the image on this coin is the excitement of what they might see, even though they were technically 20 miles away. So do with that info what you will. All right, the sculptor was Donna Weaver. Now, she worked for 6 years as a metallic artist at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. While at this mint, She designed and sculpted over 40 coins and medals. She even designed 3 of the 2007 state quarter reverse designs, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Now, Wyoming, not to be confused with Norman Nemeth, he sculpted. She designed these 3. He sculpted the Wyoming one. Donna was also part of the Artistic Infusion program. All right, the 2006 Jefferson Nickel returned to its familiar depiction on the reverse. Monticello, designed by Felix Schlag. However, this design version actually brings out in greater detail and relief to the dome and the balconies and the door and the windows. So it's still his same design, but they just refined it a little more. The Obverse shows a new portrait of Jefferson facing forward. It's based on a Rembrandt painting from the 1800s during Jefferson's lifetime. The cursive inscription is still based on his own handwriting. And the designer was Jamie Fracke, and the sculptor was Donna Weaver. So we already discussed both of those. And the 2006 version of this Jefferson Nickel is actually our same current design today. So that kind of brings us to the end of our historical presentation. So to wrap up, we're going to go back to, did we answer all these questions in order to find the historical content? Why this design? We learned that, Franklin Roosevelt, he liked Jefferson, he wanted the obverse design. The government, they decided they wanted to make the Monticello in the back. They did the different designs in 2004 and 2005, to appreciate the Lewis and Clark expedition. Why these inscriptions? Well, they've many coinage passage acts that tell us exactly what the inscriptions are supposed to be. So that's why we have those inscriptions. The other ones that aren't legally required would be to describe the photo or the image that's on the coin. Why this denomination? The coinage act required, you have to have 1 cent, 5 cents, 10 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents, $1. That's our government required that. Why this metal? They wanted the metal 75%, 25%. They changed it when they could during wartime. It's temporary. They put it back at least for the nickel. Why this weight? The weight is required. The coinage act requires the weight to be a certain weight. And why at this time? Well, like we talked about, the Buffalo nickel was in very good strikes. People weren't as interested as the Treasury wanted them to be. And when it legally became allowed for them to be able to change the design in 25 years, they were happy to do so. So I think we answered all those questions and a little bit more. And I hope everybody was happy with the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. We do have a couple of questions, so I'm going to read those out for you. Other than minor chances of the changes, I think, of the obverse and reverse, why has there not been a major redesign of the nickel with a completely new reverse and obverse? This is obviously a why do you think probably?
Well, it was going fine. Thomas Jefferson, sometimes they change things, but you have like staples of presidents. You've got your George Washington, you've got your Lincoln, you've got your Jefferson. So those tend to stay a lot longer. Also, they will be changing it soon. I'm fully confident they will be, because there was another coinage act passed, I believe in 2020, where they're trying to get ideas, and they got a bunch of different ideas from people for the coins until 2040, I believe, or until 2035. And they had a contest. It was the same kind of thing. Now, I found out about the contest after it was already over, and so they've already picked their designs up to 2035. But I don't know. I don't have the end, but I'm fully confident there's going to be a nickel change design in there. Again, it seems that the changes seem to fall in alignment with the law changes or the different passages act. The currency is part of our law, and we don't think about that. When we just are changing, like, oh, that's a pretty picture, I wonder why that's here, and it turns out that there's like a legal requirement for something to be on there. So
yeah.
All right.
I don't know if you're looking at the Q&As, but there's
I didn't even know I could.
Oh yeah, you can. I was just going to say,
this is new.
Somebody's asking if you've heard of the Henning nickel, and then giving it just a little bit of information on that. I found a 1944 LP mint mark searching bankrolls about 18 months ago. It is a counterfeit named after the counterfeiter's last name. Worth looking it up if you're not familiar.
I started looking into that. Yeah, I was starting to look into that. But yeah, no, there's a lot of interesting stories with the nickels, especially when you start getting into different counterfeits or dyes and errors and things like that. There's not too many. And then I don't know. No, the metal cost of nickel does not exceed 5-cent value at this point. I can answer that one. But what I did want to do is, normally I don't do this because it's history, but I want to just throw a couple out there because I know everybody wants to know, like, what are a couple key dates and varieties? And, I was planning on, maybe having a part 2 when it really focuses. But like I said in the beginning, I like to teach the history first because that gives you like a well-rounded understanding of the coin. It's hard to search for details if you don't have a fuller understanding of the coin. But I just wanted to throw a couple out here for anybody if they were interested. That there's the 1939 doubled Monticello, and it's from the Philadelphia Mint, so you're not going to see a P on it. But this doubling, it's of the name Monticello and of the 5 cents. And it's due to a die error. In mint state, it's worth like $200 to $2,500. Okay, so you can look for those. 1939D, it's the second lowest mintage at $3,500,000. And in mint state, it's worth $60 to $250, right? And then we've got the 1950D, which is kind of like the one that everybody's looking for because that one happens to be the lowest mintage at $2.5 million, and mint state from $15 to $200. And it used to be worth a little more in the past because it was so sought after. But the fact that it's a 1950 now, it's not as old. So you have to take these things in consideration when you're talking about the worth of the coin. Is, there's condition, and then there's age, and then there's, errors, and there's all these different things. But those 3 are the most popular that you might still be able to find through rolls, the 30s and rolls, but you might in circulation find the 50D. So I just wanted to throw that out there for people too.
Okay. Somebody wants to know if you got an autographed baseball dollar coin.
No, that would be nice. What? Mike Trout, I'll tell you this, I got a baseball thrown by Mike Trout, but I got to get that autographed because he threw it right at my husband. We were like, yeah. Follow the angels. We travel a lot. We follow the angels.
That's great. That's great. Jefferson Nickels are such an easy and often overlooked series to collect, and just wanted to say good job on the presentation. So,
oh, thank you. Because I believe so too. Yeah. I mean, like I said, they're one of the few collections that are affordable that you can have, and they're in circulation, and it gets you excited. You get excited about things that you can actually touch and feel. I mean, I like foreign coins too. I just got a big bag of stamps, and a lot of them are foreign. And it's really interesting, and I like it. But there's something about just holding that money in your hand, that you use every day, and having an understanding about it. And one story, just since I've been getting into this, I've been, my daughters, she kept saying, oh, I don't really care about coins. I don't care about coins. Well, here her and her husband are now. They're checking every thing in their change. They got a 1940 quarter. And I said, that's silver. And her husband almost gave it away. And then she goes, wait a minute. She grabbed it out of his hand. She could tell that it just looked like a different kind of metal.
Yeah.
And she grabbed it out of his hand. She goes, oh, that's what this is. She goes, oh, and she called me right away, and she took a picture. And it's like, so this is, it is exciting.
Yeah.
Coin collecting is very, very exciting.
And when it's attainable, right? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, you're making it a little attainable. So that's
what I like.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you. I don't see any more questions popping up, but I did want to just say thank you, and to remind everybody that our NumismaTalks are being recorded, and they are going to be available on our new members only e-learning academy at the end of April. So this is a big deal for our education department. This will be in there as a member benefit, so everybody can go back and watch if they'd like. That date is April 29th. You should be getting a bunch of information about that fairly soon. Be sure to check future programs. The lives will always be available to everybody. It's just the recordings that will be for member benefits. So I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to the next time.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.